Hello guys, it's me Butterfly Spirit 314, and you guys are probably like, what is she doing with her book on the her book next to her head? Okay, so anyway, just being a little silly today. So guys, so the title of this video, I tried to post this go live on my YouTube channel, Butterfly Spirit 314 on YouTube, and somehow the internet connection started acting kind of weird and stuff and saying I didn't have a connection. So what I'm gonna do in this video, I'm just gonna tell you guys about why it's important, like how my savings actually came in handy, and then this might help you guys decide on whether or not a savings is the best idea for you. So this is the book I read, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And this book taught me about money. It taught me about things like greed, wealth, and happiness. So it taught me a lot of different things about money. It taught me about, getting money is not the same thing as keeping money. Because in order to keep money, you have to be paranoid, okay? You have to, you know how people say only the paranoid survive? Well, yeah. If you want to keep money, you have to be paranoid, about, things associated with it because you're trying to hold on to it. Getting money, you have to open yourself up to the opportunities to really get access to money, okay? This is why people talk about, if you're trying to go for a job, try to get a job where you can make the most money possible. And, you don't stay, you don't stay working in the same place for too long. Maybe you're there for like a year and then you move on to another job where you make more money, okay? And it's kind of like you're chasing the opportunities so you can make more money. Okay, so taking advantage of opportunities to get money is one thing, but trying to keep the money once you get it, it can be difficult because there's all these different things that once you have money, you may want to spend your money on it. I mean, if you're working hard for money, of course you'd want to spend your money that you're working so hard for. When people working a 9 to 5 and they're just in the job and they're working hard and just toiling away or whatever, once they get their paycheck, of course they want to spend it on themselves. But the thing is that if you want to build wealth, then you have to accumulate money. That's what you have to do. You have to stack your money in order to keep it. And this is where it comes in with a savings. So, one of the things that I learned from the psychology of money is basically that it's important to have a savings because shit can hit the fan, okay? Things can happen. There's always the possibility that something can blow up in your face and you have to spend money, okay? And imagine what happens if something goes wrong and you don't have the money. There's been times in my life where I didn't have a savings, okay? There's times where I didn't have it. And man, when I didn't have a savings and things would happen, it's uncomfortable because then you got to try to scrounge around. You may have to go pawn stuff, that you have. And when you go pawn stuff, they won't even give you the amount of money you need if you're trying to like make rent or pay a bill or something like that. What if you need to pawn something because you got to get, money so you can take a Uber to a job interview or to get money so you can put gas in your car so you can even go to the job interview, or what if you need to buy yourself an outfit so you can go to a job interview. And I mean, there's other stuff too that you may need money for. What if you need money because let's say you have to pay for a doctor's appointment because you're not feeling well, and you also need money because you need the antibiotics that end up they're going to end up charging you for, like when you go to a pharmacy, after you get out of the hospital. There's a lot of stuff can happen. Also, there's the topic where maybe you're going to have a situation like me where you have an unsuspecting car problem that pops up. So I'm going to tell you guys about it. And this is how my savings actually came in handy. So normally I would be at work today, okay? Normally I would be. I was supposed to be at work yesterday, but I didn't go to work yesterday. And I didn't go to work today. However, I'm going to tell you guys about how my savings actually saved me. So, um, so what happened is that I've been hearing this noise when I apply pressure to my brakes of my car, in the front of my car. And, I just kind of passed it off. I was like, oh, no, I don't have to worry about it. So, I go to the dealer, and this was in March, like the middle of March, and I go, and they're replacing my windshield wipers for me, which turned out to be pretty cheap. It was about like $30 for them to fix, like replace my windshield wipers, which I really needed because there was like the rubber was coming off of my windshield wipers. So I'm literally that person who will literally try to get the most use out of something as long as I can, okay? Until I have to replace it, okay? I try to stretch. And so I'm not the type of person to buy a bunch of new stuff all the time. No, 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 no. I like to get my use out of stuff. Okay. I had this pair of boots that my dad brought me. They were wintertime boots. I was wearing those boots during the wintertime. I was wearing them things until they got holes in them. Okay. And it was so bad where the bottom of the doggone bottom of the part of the boot, they were some cute boots too, and they were kind of fluffy. Those things, I wore them till they had a hole in them to the point where I was coming home, and I didn't have a car. I was saving for a car, and I wore it to the bottom of the boot was coming off, and like water was coming like up through the boot and stuff, and I was coming home, and I could feel the water like on my feet coming through the bottom of the boot because there was like a cut in the boot and stuff. Yeah, that's how resourceful I am. Okay. Some people say, oh my God, that's extreme. Well, hey, it's important. I like to stretch things. I'm trying to learn how to buy things, to replace things before they get to that point, but it's a hard habit to break. Okay, it really is. So, here's what happened. When I ended up going and getting my windshield wipers replaced, there was a diagnostic that they did for free at the dealership, and they checked out my brakes. And what they told me is they told me that they said my brake caliper, they said that it seized, okay, and they said there was some other issues going on with my car. And so at that particular time, what I did is that I was so focused on the other stuff that the guy was telling me about when I was checking out, like when I was paying for the windshield wipers, that I completely forgot all about, I didn't even hear anything about the brakes. So, on Monday, when I was coming home from work, I heard this sound um, when I applied the brake. When I was on my way from work, and I started hearing this sound that I'd never heard before, and I was like, maybe it's the wind blowing against my car or something like that, and stuff. And I was like, man, there's something so weird about this sound. And I heard like this kind of rubbing sound and stuff, like rubbing metal, and I was like, I don't know what the hell that is. So I was really scared. I was gonna pull on the side of the road, but something told me no, keep going towards home. So um, I ended up coming home, pulled into a parking spot, and as I was pulling up and I was putting my foot on the brake, I heard this grinding sound. And it was grinding and also a clacking sound too. And so I was like, you know, um, I was saying to myself, I was like, I don't feel very comfortable with the sound that I'm hearing. Something is broken or something is wrong. And so I ended up looking at the paperwork that I got from the dealership. And sure enough, it is said that the brake caliper has seized. And I'm like, what does that mean? So I when I came to the house, I started doing research and stuff. And they said it was in the front, but they didn't say which side the brake caliper was having problems on. It didn't say whether it was the right or the left. So it was kind of a catch 22 because I didn't know. So I was like, well, man, I don't think I can drive my car like this. I'm thinking like, well, maybe it's something cheap and simple to repair, you know. So, it was bothering me, and I really wasn't able to get much sleep, Monday into Tuesday. Monday into Tuesday morning. So overnight I was trying to sleep, and I was just not able to sleep because the idea with the brakes were bothering me so bad, and I was worried, so I had a bad sleep. So, what ended up happening was I ended up calling off of work, and I said, I gotta go get this checked out. And one of the things is that when I was on YouTube doing some research, then they said it is not safe to drive a car if there's something wrong with the caliper. It's very dangerous where like your car won't be able to stop or something, and it can be really bad. So Tuesday morning, I got up well before I was supposed to go to work. Well, actually, I got up at the normal time, and I realized I needed to go get my brakes checked out. So I called off work. I told them, I said, hey, I'm not gonna be able to come in today. I said I gotta get my brakes fixed, and they were like, okay, cool. So luckily, I have paid time off, so that's gonna cover me. So I won't have to worry about that. So, and I don't use my paid time off too much. I'm like, it's kind of rare for me to use it. So let's see. So I'm also using it today too, because that you're gonna understand why in a minute. So what happened is that what happened was is that I ended up um, taking my car into a mechanic shop on Tuesday morning. And I'm just thinking, oh, all they gotta do is replace one part. It's more inexpensive to go to this mechanic shop than it would be for me to go to the dealer. So I'll just go here. So I drop my car off, and I tell the mechanic shop what the dealer had told me about my brake caliper seizing. And they were like, well, do you know which side? I said, no, I don't know which side. And so basically, um, I'd leave and drop my car off and stuff with them. I had to take public transportation back home, so I had to catch a train, and then I would walk the rest of the way home. And I did. And once I got home, um, like actually a little, like probably I'd say about 10 minutes before I got home, because it takes a long time on public transportation. Um, 10 minutes before I managed to make it home, the mechanic shop calls me and they said, hey, I was like, hey, what's up? I'm like, oh, is it fixed already? Thinking, oh, they fixed the caliper. Okay, good. The guy at the mechanic shop tells me, he said, um, it turns out, and I guess I should have had an inkling too, because the guy left me on my voicemail, he left an emergency message instead of a regular message. And so the guy tells me, once I call the mechanic shop back, he's like, well, it turns out that your brake problem is a lot more extensive than you thought it was. He said, your whole front brake, your whole like system with your front brakes is going to need to be overhauled. I said, what? It's going to have to be overhauled? Are you kidding me? That's what I'm thinking in my head. I didn't curse, but I just was thinking in my head. He's like, yeah. He said, what happened is that your brake pad was eaten up into like your rotors and stuff or whatever, and into your then a caliper too. He's like, so your car is not safe to drive. He said both sides of your brakes are gonna need to be replaced, and they're gonna need to be replaced like now. And I was like, okay, how much is this gonna cost? He's like, well, it's gonna cost $1,300. I'm like, what? $1,300? Oh my gosh. What? And so I'm like, I did not plan for it to be that much. He's like, well, as it stands, he said, your car is not safe to drive. He said, do you want us to do the repairs and do you pay for it? I said, well, no. He's like, so you're just gonna come back and pick up your car? I said, yeah. I said, because I don't have that kind of money to do that. And so I ended up continuing my walk home in shock, you know, wishing the repair could have been cheap. So I went home for a couple hours. Then I ended up going back to pick up my car. So I had to get back on public transportation, on the train, um, wait for the train, take it to another train station. Then I walked up to the mechanic shop. And I said, hey, can I get a printout of how much that's going to be? Because you said it was 1,300. He said, let me go ahead and write up a quote. He writes up a quote, and the quote says that it's going to be $1,100 for the brake work. There was a couple other repairs my car needed, but the brakes were the most important. The other two repairs I could hold off on and weren't essential. But the brake work needed to be done, and they were so serious about it. They were like, well, hey, we have this kind of pay as you go program. You can go through a firm and stuff or whatever, and you can try to get approved for that, and then they'll split up your payments and you just pay over a course of time and stuff. And so I said, well, they were like, well, you can do it through an app and stuff. I said, well, my phone's dying right now, so I can't do that. So I took the quote and stuff and left. And then I came home and I was so stressed out about it that I took a nap. So a few hours later, I woke up from a nap and something had told me, like, after I got the news about my front end brakes, both sides needed to be fixed, um, something had told me, it was like, well, is there a way that you can is there a way that you can use money that you have to get the repair done? And it was kind of like this gut feeling. I was like, this little small voice, and I was like, hmm, you know. And so after my nap, I started thinking about if there was a way that I can pay for the repair. So in my savings account, I knew I had a savings that I had built up. Now I had dipped into my savings a little bit, and stuff. So I had dipped into it, but I still had some money left. And so in my savings, I had almost probably half, like close to half the amount that was going to be needed for the repair. And so I had that. And then I knew I was going to be getting paid. Um, and so I was like, okay, let's see. And I had some things, when I was getting paid, that I was going to be, had plans to use money for little thises and that's things I wanted to do for fun. And so I managed to scrape together the money for the brake repair. And I'm not happy about it. In fact, I'm pissed about it. I'm very pissed. But I'm so glad that I managed to bring the money together myself than trying to go through some kind of personal loan or emergency loan through a bank or even going through a firm. Because when I looked up a firm, it's basically a payday loan, and they can charge you anywhere between 0 to like 36% interest rate on the money you borrowed and stuff. And I heard about people like them dropping people's credit scores just from applying and stuff. And people saying don't mess with that. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I'm like, I don't want to do this. Okay. So I scraped together that money, and thank goodness I had that savings that I had been saving. Okay. Because if I didn't have the savings, I would have had to have been on public transportation. Now, this afternoon, I'm going to be going to pick up my car today because I actually ended up taking my car back this morning to get my car fixed. This morning, 7 a.m., I called the mechanic shop. I said, hey, how much is this going to be? They're like, okay, it's going to be $1,100 plus you have the tax. Luckily, I found out they had a $75 coupon if you spend at least $500 on car maintenance. So I took advantage of that $75 coupon. Okay, I took advantage of that. I also asked if they could apply the diagnostic from yesterday. They said no because it's another business day. I was like, oh. So I dropped my car off this morning. Um, they told me the amount I'm able to. I'm gonna be picking up my car. I have the money that I need to pay the 1,100 plus the tax, and thanks to my savings, I have it. So, guys, if I didn't have the savings, I would not have been able to get out of this, like get off from under this hurdle if I did not have a savings. And this is kind of my message to you guys. Like, that situation with the brakes came out of nowhere. I heard a little noise, but I was like, you know. But the thing is, guys, anything can happen. Anything can happen. And that anything that can happen, do you have some money set aside to help you? Do you have 100 or 200, maybe even 300, set aside just in case something happens? You know, because like me, you could end up having a car problem. And that car problem can be an issue. And what if you live somewhere where you can't, there's no public transportation? You know, what if? You know, luckily I was able to scrape it together and I'm still able to pay for expenses that I have and stuff, like bills and eating and stuff. But guys, if I didn't have that savings, I would have been up shit creek. And I would have been, and on top of that, I could take public transportation to get to work, but guess what? If I would have, if I wouldn't have had a savings, the train station that's next to my job, that's being worked on right now. And so I would have had to have taken a shuttle from another train station um to basically to my job and stuff, and I would have probably had to do that for like a month, or so. You know what I'm saying? And so, I would have been out of luck if I didn't have a savings. Now, what sucks is my savings is going to go down to zero. And I'm sad because I miss having that savings. But the good thing is I get to rebuild it. But that savings sure came in handy. Um, you know. And so I just want to let you guys know. Remember like back a couple months ago, I was really excited. I was making progress with my savings and stuff. Yeah, I was. And I was like happy to have it. But at least I'm glad that that savings actually is going to go towards a repair that is going to be warranted and a work on the repair is going to be warranted. I'll be a little pissed because there's some things I wanted to do. But at least my savings help me. And there's a couple of fun things I'm going to be able to do in May, so I'll still be able to do those things. But I'm just glad I built a savings because if I didn't have that, man, I would have really been stressed out. And on my way driving back home, I was stressed driving my car. I was so worried that, oh my God, what if the brakes are going to give out or something like that? Yeah, and it was raining yesterday too. And this morning it was raining. So, and I was told to, be try to be safe driving, and my brakes were like that. Yeah. But the good thing today is that as soon as I brought my car to the mechanic shop, they were ready to work on my car. There's a guy, there was a mechanic there, he was ready and happy, like passionately happy about fixing my car. Because I guess it was just something that cars are just something he loves to work on. You know, him and the other mechanics too. But I'm so grateful to have a savings because if I didn't have a savings, things would have been a lot more tense and stressful. And I really would not have wanted to go through a payday loan, and have my credit drop and all that stuff. And my recommendation to you guys is please do not mess with that stuff. I learned about Firm and Klarna and different other stuff. It's just better to stay away from that stuff. If you can buy stuff yourself, buy it. Don't mess with that stuff because I've heard people talk about the outrageous interest and all that. Some people use it with no problem, but you know what? I'm not risking it. I know I can count on myself better than I can count on, some loan place and stuff like that, and where they're going to charge me an insane amount of interest. Not going for that. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video. And this just goes to show you that you never know when something's going to happen. And in the psychology of money, this is what one of the things the author talks about, which is why he has a savings, why and he and his wife have a savings because, you know, it's kind of like Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? So it's always best to try to protect yourself from things that can go wrong, especially if they're going to cost you money because we're always going to spend money on stuff, but we never know when something like a car repair is going to pop up or a medical visit is going to pop up, like me stepping on a nail or something like that, or me thinking I had to replace a lawnmower I had or whatever, which luckily I didn't have to, but we never know when expenses are going to pop up that's going to cost us money. And as savings, thank goodness that I had it, because there's a lot of people who are not they're not in a position where they can do what I was able to do. So thank you for watching, everybody. Bye.